Here to recap UFC 301, welcome to CBS Sports combat analyst Luke Thomas. Main event in Brazil, Alexandre Pantoja defends his flyweight title in his backyard, defeating Steve Erceg via unanimous decision. Withstood a lot of damage, cut open a couple of times with elbows from Erceg, but in the end it was the ground control from the champ that won it. Luke, what did you see from Pantoja there in Brazil?
Well, I saw certainly some flaws, and this was I guess there's some controversy about it with observers. I had the score that two of the judges had, 48-47 for Pantoja. I had it 2-2 heading into the fifth, and really what won him this is, I don't want to be unfair and say he is not a skilled competitor. He's obviously a very skilled competitor, but he fights with such ferocity that a lot of times he could overwhelm opponents, but against skilled opposition like this, he also leaves a lot of openings, and to your point, he was cut open with elbows. He had a lot of his takedowns stuffed, although he got a lot as well because he kind of just spams them to a degree. But you saw that he got whooped up on in several spots in this fight. What really comes down to in that fifth round was how much damage did he get through the ground control, or how close was he through that ground control to establishing any kind of real submission threat? And the answer is not much. And so some of that scoring is going to be a little bit debatable in that fifth round. But we have to say it, Hakeem, the two level changes, the two shots that Steve Erceg took, where they were good shots. He actually had a good penetration step into them, but then he gets reversed or he gets out-scrambled by a guy who's just sort of more naturally known for those kinds of skills. That's one, to do that one time and then the guy reverses it, fine. But to do it again, I don't think Steve Erceg has fight IQ issues, but this was just his fourth fight in the UFC, and I think that was a huge mistake. He gave the fight away. That fifth round was winnable. Oh, it has to be frustrating for Team Erceg tonight.
Yeah, he was competing in his first UFC title fight, the 10th ranked contender in the division, and some were questioning why he was getting this opportunity so soon. What did you take away, or what did you learn about him overall in this fight?
Well, I know you don't like it when we do picks normally because I often pick people that are heavy favorites. Well, I'll tell you the truth here. I thought he was going to win. When we did the show on MK, I picked him to win. I thought this was somebody that everybody was overlooking. You look at him, and he looks like the kind of guy when you go to Target, you're like, hey, I want to buy this LG TV. Yeah. And they're the guy that kind of pulls it off the wall. That's what he looks like. And so the point I'm trying to make here is he just seems very unassuming, seems very ordinary. He is not an ordinary fighter. I think you saw that tonight. Very well-rounded, very, very good boxing. And at times in this fight when he was mixing up good challenges to the blitzes of Pantoja or good ways to catch him on the exit, good combination punching, he was on fire. He looked amazing. Again, the elbows, phenomenal. The elbows combined with the uppercut, fantastic. He looked great. It's just there's a certain level of just dedicated purpose that Pantoja competes with, and it gives him fire to control positions, to dictate to other guys, and including guys like Erceg, who tend to fight more in a cerebral manner. He just kind of overwhelms you with force. I really believe that was the difference here tonight. Steve Erceg, a worthy adversary, but this is going to be a learning lesson for him going forward.
Indeed. Pantoja's now won 6 straight, 21 of his last 24 fights. Co-main event, the 37-year-old Jose Aldo looked incredible. First UFC fight in more than 20 months, sharp on the feet, landed huge shots in the third round, finishing the round with a takedown and top control. After the fight, he said it wasn't his last fight. What'd you make of his performance, the King of Rio returning?
I thought he looked great. All things being what they are, he looked fantastic. I mean, here's the reality, right? I was curious to see how his athleticism was going to look, how his reflexes were going to look, how his decision-making was going to look. Was he going to have cardio in the third round? Any of the kind of things you worry about from a guy being off for a while or being a little bit older. And I just didn't see any evidence of much of a drop-off at all. Now, Jonathan Martinez is a good fighter, not a top-5 fighter, and so there's still some questions about how far any kind of renewed push can go. But as it relates to tonight, dude, he looked great. He looked dialed in. He looked ready. He had a good game plan. And the big thing for me, Hakeem, was talking about Jonathan Martinez. He has a formidable leg kicking game. And so you kind of wondered, how's it going to match up with Aldo? But as you saw from Aldo, he was able to maintain the kind of range to take it away. Great leg kicking defense. And then once he took away the leg kicks from Martinez, he just didn't have a second or third order offense to go to. But Jose Aldo does, even without his own vaunted leg kicks. Great boxing game. You saw the takedown at the end. He's got good jiu-jitsu. So you can see the depth in his game. Still quite remarkable.
Yeah, he announced his retirement in September of 2022. He walks it back. He talks the talk here, says it's not his last fight. When you talk about older guys and older people fighting in MMA, and sometimes we talk about, okay, they're getting up there to 37 years old, he proved that he's still got a lot left in the tank, Luke.
Yes. I mean, it's still a question about how far he can go, right? He's not competing in just a regular old division. He's competing at 135 pounds. When he was a champion, he was a weight class up at 145, which is still a very good division. But 135 is arguably the best one in all of MMA. And that's the division he's in now. So this was a great win over a guy ranked inside the top 15. Clearly, this is the kind of victory you can look at and say, is Aldo still relevant as a potential title contender? No doubt about it. He certainly is. The question is, like, what kind of matchmaking he's going to get to what kind of place. That remains unclear. Also, there's a question of, like, whether or not he'll go and box with or without this UFC contract being done. Jorge Masvidal was granted the opportunity to go take 3 boxing fights, even though he's still under UFC contract. I wonder if Aldo might pursue something in a similar way. But to everything we saw tonight, his athleticism, his chin, his game planning, his readiness, they all seem pretty good. I think he'll get a tough fight next.
Give it up for the old guy. The King of Rio is back, looking great, as is Luke Thomas here on CBS Sports HQ, breaking down UFC 301. And still, the undisputed super middleweight champion of the world, Canelo Alvarez, back in the ring over the Cinco de Mayo weekend. One of the all-time greats, defending his belt against the previously undefeated Jaime Munguia. As they go the distance in Vegas, Canelo drops Munguia in the 4th round, showing off his power. The 33-year-old Canelo makes the 4th defense of his undisputed title. And for more, welcome to CBS Sports combat analyst Brian Campbell, who joins us from Vegas. BC, you watched this fight inside T-Mobile Arena. Canelo drops Munguia in the 4th round as they go the distance. Your best bet hits Alvarez via decision, so tip of the cap to you. What did you see from Canelo in this bout?
I saw a 33-year-old living legend still, right, in the midst of the second half of his prime, which is incredible. Let's remind ourselves, this was the 65th pro fight of an all-time great, as I mentioned, a Mexican icon who turned pro at age 15, 19 years ago. But what he showed against a 27-year-old in his prime, undefeated opponent who was only getting better with each fight, was just masterful. The ability to stand at close range against a bigger puncher and really make it into a counter game where the quicker hands of Alvarez really told the tale. Early on, Munguia got inside on Alvarez. He backed him up into the corner. But once Canelo was able to drop the younger fighter in round 4 with a beautiful right uppercut followed by a left hook to the liver, it changed the tenor of the fight. To Munguia's credit, his stock goes up huge after this night because how he stayed in this fight, remained dangerous, and really had some of his best work in the championship rounds to the close. But when you look at the stats overall, Alvarez connected on 50% of his power punches thrown. And he did so typically in a phone booth a couple feet, sometimes just inches away from his opponent. When Canelo said all week there's levels to this and Canelo is different, speaking in third person, he was right, Hakeem. He's way different.
He is, and this was a pretty cool fight to be at because this was the first all-Mexican matchup for a major world title, any weight above 160 pounds. What was it like being inside the arena for this fight? Had to be electric.
Oh, it felt like you were right in the midst of Mexico City or Guadalajara because the Mexican fans showed up. We even got the U.S. national anthem performed mariachi style, which was a nice touch as well. But what was most intriguing was Las Vegas is a Canelo town. He took the baton from Floyd and Manny, from Oscar De La Hoya, his ex-promoter before him, as the toast of Las Vegas, the biggest pay-per-view star in the game. Yet throughout these 12 rounds, which featured, despite it being one-sided on the scorecard, some legitimate ebbs and flows at times, you saw the crowd react to that. There'd be chance of Canelo one round, chance of Munguia the next. Even though Munguia doesn't speak English and even though he doesn't have an overly charismatic personality, he represents what Mexican boxing is all about. Straight ahead style, only he showed more maturity on this night. and he was there until the final bell, never stopping to come forward and go for the knockout. As Canelo said it best after this fight in the ring during his interview, this is Mexican boxing. We are Mexico. This is what we are about. To just get a little taste of that celebration here on Cinco de Mayo weekend was certainly a special touch.
Pretty cool moment there to be a part of that as Canelo hands Munguia his first professional loss. You said that Munguia's stock is rising. What more did you learn about this young man?
That the bright lights here, like this is the Super Bowl of boxing, right? You're facing off against Canelo Alvarez in Las Vegas on a Mexican holiday. This was a stage that wasn't too bright for Jaime Munguia. Yes, he loses this fight in the end, and he's going to have a lot of experience gained from this performance, but his cardio was top-notch for 12 rounds. His chin was otherworldly, considering once Canelo was able to time him with those counter shots, Canelo was landing the type of punches he knocks people out with, yet Munguia kept coming forward. You really see the growth and maturity. Just his second fight with Hall of Famer Freddie Roach. We know him from all those years behind Manny Pacquiao in the corner, and you saw him elevate the strengths of Munguia in this one, where yes, it's all about Canelo at the end of the day, but Munguia may have been good enough on this night to beat any other super middleweight in the world. And maybe it's hard to say that with somebody like David Benavidez out there, but this was a strong, confident, mature performance for Munguia, even though just couldn't get over the hump again against one of the sport's all-time best to do it.
Well, you're a professional because you lead me right to my next question. Canelo Alvarez improves to 61-2-2. What's next for him?
Well, we know what the fans want.
Yep.
David Benavidez, the Mexican monster. He's undefeated. He's a two-time champion in this division. He's the #1 contender, the interim champion. Look, he's everything. He's next. Only he doesn't want to wait around for Canelo. That's why he's moving up to light heavyweight next fight. Canelo was asked about whether he would fight Benavidez in the ring afterwards. And at first he said, look, I just want to take some rest, go see my family. The Mexican crowd turned on Canelo in that moment, which was an interesting wrinkle because what are they all about? Fighting the best all the time, which really has been the hallmark, the label of Canelo's whole career. He's always daring to be great, but you see the frustration in his response that even though Canelo would go on to say, look, if the price is right, I'll fight Benavidez right now, tonight. And I do think he means that. He didn't go out of his way to try to sell the fans that this is what he actually wants. He said he'd do it if the money is there. But it's just interesting to see a fighter in Canelo who you'd have to really pick closely on his resume to try to take any shots critically against him for him to not want a fight of this magnitude against someone coming up that really could be a pound-for-pound and pay-per-view threat for the next decade in David Benavidez. This is what boxing is all about, the best fighting the best. Hopefully the powers that be can find some of that cashola and make it happen sooner than later.
You know what I always say, this is what boxing needs, so give it to us, give it to us. And you gave it to us, by the way, on Friday before this fight. You gave us Canelo Alvarez via decision -105, so I feel like now you can ride off into the sunset and turn in your retirement papers, right? I mean, you put a couple stacks down on this.
Yeah, well, let's not mention all the other ones I got wrong, though. Let's be fair right there. But look, I did respect the chin of Munguia coming in, and he had to use it just to go those 12 rounds on this night.
The soothsayer, Brian Campbell, here on CBS Sports HQ, CBS Sports Combat Analyst, breaking down Canelo defeating Jaime Munguia via decision in Vegas. BC, thanks. Canelo Alvarez taking care of business. He's now won 4 straight fights since his loss to Dimitri Bivol 2 years ago. Only other loss was against Floyd Mayweather in 2013. On this night, the 33-year-old Canelo makes the 4th defense of his undisputed title.